So, dear friends, dear colleagues, welcome. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's very nice to see all of you. And it would be, of course, nicer to be together and to hug you, but what to do? So we do out the best. And thank you very much for the translators. And we try to speak slowly today so that the translators can translate simultaneously in 4 different languages. You know, it's always great to meet the author of a book, because maybe you have read the book, you are planning to buy the book, but it's good to see and to understand what did the author want to do, impress or express. It's like when you go to a museum, you stand in front of the picture for hours, you think, and you cannot ask the artist. So I think it's great that we can welcome today our dear colleague Arno Remmers. And so Arno, thank you very much for joining. I know you are very busy with many seminars all over the world. And we had some months ago the other author of the book, Udo Boessmann. Mm-hmm. And now today we have the pleasure to spend some time with you. Maybe before we get to that, just maybe one short notice. We want to discuss with you, dear colleagues, today a very special book. And you will understand that it is special because the board of directors of WAP decided to publish it in about 10 different languages. This is more or less the first time this is done. And so there must be something very special about that. So we have here let me see, we have here the Albanian translation, and the Polish are ready. Here we have the German original. There we have the Polish one. So, and soon we will have it in many other languages. And the books will be published, some of them by WAP itself, so it's easier to get them. So Arno, thank you very much for coming and for joining. And maybe I can start with the first question. You see, every author believes that his book is the best book in the world, that it is, everybody should buy it, everybody should have it. So why should people buy this book, read this book? What is so special at this book?
Dear Hamid, I must disappoint you. I don't think it's the best book. But when I want to know something about psychodynamic, I have to read about 200 books. And this was the problem we have had in the young Wiesbaden Academy when we had our students in the 90s and beginning of the 2000s. We couldn't offer them 200 books to read. There was no book that was compiled. And so our group at that time, we had been some colleagues who had been working together in the 90s, Udo Boessmann, Gunther Hübner, and Wolfgang Höhenmann, and many others, students of Nossrat Peseschkian, who wanted to develop the psychodynamic view in positive psychotherapy. And so we had been sitting together. And finally, when we found out it's difficult to suggest good books to our students, we came up with this idea, let's write a book together. And Udo was the one who had the most time to write. So we in our group had been sitting together, and Udo wrote down so that finally this first version of the book came out. It's a bit old, you see. I must be very careful with it not to yeah, because this is one of the first versions. This was the first version for our students to summarize some psychodynamic understanding. And
because
then,
this was,
yeah,
okay, sorry. Because this
and
was
then,
exactly the question I wanted to ask. How many books did you read before you were writing this book or during writing the book? So you said already it comprises like 200 other books, yeah?
Of course, there are some books in the library that I really read, but did I understand them? That's the question. And so we discussed what we understood or what we did not understand and tried to write it down in an understandable way at that time, 20 years ago. And from then on, Udo and me had been sitting together over a time of about 20 years, discussing more and more of these subjects, and some more books came out. And this book also grew. It was a baby at that time. And later, there had been new versions and more versions, more and more pages, 450 pages around in the German version, until you decided to have a translation of that book. And then the next chapter starts that we found out, hey, that's good for the German students, what we developed, what we compiled, so that all parts of psychodynamic understanding are in there, but how to transfer that to the international public. And so we again worked on that book, changed a lot, changed the case, changed the structure, and made a new book of it, this international version now. So that's a bit of the history of that book.
Very good. So what is now, because now these books which we are going to be published, it's like the international version. Yeah. So what is different briefly in the international version, what is not in the German edition?
Yeah. We have a little bit more relation to positive psychotherapy in some chapters, and especially the case is now different from the case we used in Germany, as the German case was a specific German one, and this we have now is a little bit more applicable also to different cultures, this client. And therefore, also the explanations are different. And different also are some parts that we made a bit more clear. And also the structure of the book was changed to have a better understanding of psychodynamic development and so on.
In many places, people ask always, is positive psychotherapy more a humanistic method, an integrative method, a psychodynamic method, or any other thing? Now, in this and the other book, you say it's a humanistic psychodynamic psychotherapy method. Could you explain this a little bit?
Hamid, you sometimes used yourself head, hand, and heart. You can say the humanistic part is the heart of the client and of the therapist and their interaction. On this basis, to have a humanistic approach, all therapies become effective. The psychodynamic part is for the mind, for the head, to understand what is going on, to reflect what happens in our encounter. That's the psychodynamic part. And the hands, what we are doing in therapy, that's the therapeutic approach, the therapeutic techniques. All three parts are in here, also written in that book, insofar as positive psychotherapy has this very clear humanistic approach. Two people are together so that a development of these human beings starts, of the client and maybe also of the therapist. That's the humanistic part. And the therapists need to understand what is going on in the client, to reflect that. Therefore, they need the psychodynamic model.
But do you know any other method which is humanistic psychodynamic, or?
You can say Gestalt therapy tried exactly that in the past. The problem is that the theory is very complicated when you go into it. On the other side, Gestalt is something that is very practical. So in positive psychodynamic therapy and in positive psychotherapy of Peseschkian, it's a bit easier to understand the background of theory. In Gestalt, it's more a practical approach that got a theory a bit later. So you have a more systematic approach, an easier understandable approach in positive psychodynamic therapy, and you have a very good practice in Gestalt therapy. And what is practiced in Gestalt, we can also use in positive psychotherapy, positive psychodynamic therapy. You can also say psychodrama could be understood, and there is psychodynamic psychodrama. It could be understood also as a humanistic approach, as you play roles of human beings, of humans. You see the capacities, you see how somebody acts out his own life, and you understand it by sharing and reflecting, but not in that systematic way like it was founded by positive psychotherapy. So I would say the humanistic approach is to find in other approaches too, to make it more systematic in a psychodynamic way. It is easier to use positive psychodynamic therapy.
And Arno, if you say the book, the first version came out more than 20 years ago, do you remember what Nossrat Peseschkian said to this book? Might be interesting for some of our colleagues.
On one side, he said, yeah, it's good to have it, and some of parts of the positive psychotherapy are in there. But he said, oh, but what you do need it for, you have the positive psychotherapy already. Yeah. And in the next years, I remember some discussions around 2006. I discussed with Nossrat, with your father, about the personality structure. And I told him about the talks in Heidelberg with the OPD group, and said, it's so important to look at the structure. And Nossrat said, but Arno, Herr Remmers, Mr. Remmers, we have the structure that's in the balance model. And I said, yes, but there is the personality in it. He said, yes, everything is in there. You don't need anything else at that time. And it needed some time until this cooperation between this OPD group, for instance, or the psychodynamic understanding and the aspect of personality and structure had more influence in positive psychotherapy. Yeah. So he was happy that we had this book on one side. On the other side, he preferred to stay in classical positive psychotherapy and capacities because he did not like to work so much with countertransference and transference. But we needed that also for our students. He didn't like these words defense mechanism so very much, or resistance, because he preferred to name that capacities, and he was right also. And so today we tried to mix, to bring that together. Each defense mechanism needs respect, needs to be cared of, because it's a capacity to react. In this way, an integration found its place in the 2000s.
And then, Arno, you said that, of course, this book was first developed for German students, German psychotherapists. And now many of our colleagues live in countries where there is no insurance system. So the system is the formal system is a little bit different for psychotherapy. But what can we learn from this book for our practical work, even if we don't have an insurance system, for example?
In that German system, it is important that you describe exactly what is the conflict of the client, what is the personality of the client, what is the function of the symptoms, and so on. in which way this patient suffers. Therefore, you need a very good description of what happened with the client and why the client suffers now. And for that, we need all these books, like this book that had been written in the 90s, to find out how can I describe my client's suffering and the background, the psychodynamic background of that. And this clear description makes causes a picture in me as a therapist so that I understand my client better. So when we have now that book or this theory in the book or how to describe a client, it becomes much more clear how to understand my client's inner world and the social world of my client by finding out clear descriptions of what it means, not only to feel, oh, he suffers or she suffers, but also to describe, yes, this suffering has its function and has a psychodynamic function.
So Arno, can we say that this book helps us also to work more systematically, maybe, so that, because sometimes psychotherapists, as you say, stay on the emotional level. Oh, this poor patient, he needs my help, and so on. But because we see it not only as a helping profession, but more as a healing profession, so in the medical field, so therefore, you, so to say, before you, as a surgeon, you make an operation, you need a plan. Yeah, you need a plan and a diagnosis, you need a strategy. So can we say that this book helps us a little bit to work more systematic, more strategically with the client?
Yes, like with a surgeon, it's like that. For each disorder, for each personality, for each conflict, you need an explanation. You need to find out what it means, to find out how to be as a therapist with this client. For that, the book is helpful, as for each client, you need an adapted understanding and another theory. For some of the clients, you need more the aspect of capacities or balance model of positive psychotherapy. For some clients, you need the word of the self, the false and the right self. So the different kinds of the self, for instance. For other clients, you could use structural capacities to understand them and to have a treatment plan for them. So for many different clients with many different personalities, diagnoses, conflicts, and symptoms, you need also a wide range of theories. So it's not one theory with which you can work, you need different ones. And this is included in here with these different authors also of the different theories.
Arno, can we say that for this international edition, which is the one which is going to be translated in 10 languages, so to say, we have excluded the parts which are very special to the German system.
Yes,
but the important things are included: how you structure your psychotherapy session, how you structure the whole treatment process. Can we say this, or?
It's exactly like that. That was a big part of that change of the book, to take out the, let's say, official German parts and to bring in the realistic parts of therapy around the world. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe it is interesting also for our colleagues to know that, as Arno said, 20 years ago, it was the question, what should the colleagues read? But also about, I think 5 or 6 years ago, we sat down with many of our trainers in the Bessmann Academy. Yeah, so this would be like this one at the Bessmann Academy. And then we came up with a, as you said, I think with a 10-page book reading list, 10 pages. And we were very proud. We were very proud of that. And, you know, we were sitting here with so many books on the table. You know, the library has, I think, 4,000 books, 4,000. So we went through all the books and took all of the interesting ones. And then we were sitting on a big table And for days and weeks, we were discussing these books. Then we prepared the list, sent it to the 500 students. And then we were surprised, nobody's reading this. Or maybe it's reading 1 or 2 books. And we had selected, I don't know, maybe 50 books or 100 books. Oh, this book is very, very important. This book is very important. Without this book, it's not possible. And then we sat down with about 30, 40 main trainers of positive psychotherapy. And then we consulted, well, what to do. People don't read so much anymore as it was maybe in the past, and so on. And then again, the idea came out, can we maybe identify one book to say, if they read this book, they can maybe get through the examination and this and that. So if we agree at least on one book, and then the result indeed was then really this book. And what happened then, so that the students now, when you go here in the academy, in the seminar days, they walk all like that. They walk through the corridors and they say, I have the red book, I have the red book. But the good news is that they are reading it, because we have seen, so if they read that, they have really a good knowledge about psychodynamics. They understand many things, and know what to do with the client. Arno, I think this was a little bit like some years ago again, then to say, okay, if we say what is at least one book they should read, then we said it's this one. And so this inspired then also the board of directors to say, okay, let's try this in the international field, but with a modified version then. Yeah, I think, Arno, this is, I think, what we can say about that, right? Mm-hmm. Very nice. Arno, I would suggest, if you want to say something, or we could get to the questions of our colleagues. What do you think?
Yes, yeah? Of course. Yeah.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. So, dear colleagues, this was now the warming up. I hope you are now motivated, and now it's your opportunity to ask questions. Here you have the author. Ask him everything you want to know, and then hopefully Arno can, So please, friends, what are your questions? Katja, what do we do with the questions? They write in the chat, or they ask loudly?
If you want to ask loudly, please raise your hands. If you are shy or you're not sure about the language, you can write it in the chat. We will announce it.
So you raise the hand like that with this sign, huh?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so please, and the translators will hopefully translate it then. If you don't ask your questions, I have many questions here I will ask, yeah? So, and friends, while you're thinking, you see, in the past, people said, oh, this book is only English. This book is only German. This book is only that. Now it is going to be published in Russian, Ukrainian, Polish, Albanian, Turkish, right? Then comes on the way is also, I think, Chinese, Bulgarian, Romanian, Arno, and so I think these 8 languages are on Turkish, that moment. Sorry?
Turkish, or?
The Turkish, yes, Turkish? Yeah, Turkish. So it's 8 are on the way. So, and some others are planned. So there is no excuse anymore. You know, I cannot read this anymore then, yeah, and so on. Then. So your questions, please. Please, Ola. But slowly for the translators. Yeah.
In English, can it be in English?
Yes.
The question, it goes like this. You mentioned that you excluded some parts, Germans for German students because they were so specific to German culture. And yet there are so many languages. Did you consult anyone to bring up those special elements that are specific for Turkish culture, Polish culture, and other cultures? So did you also add anything to the additions in foreign language?
Thank you very much.
I must say I didn't add something concerning specific countries. I tried to change it, that was my job more than Uro's. I tried to change it a little bit more to social systems because the German psychodynamic therapy is very much orientated about to work with individuals. And in many countries, families are as important as the individuals in therapy. So a bit more is mentioned about the social system around. That's a bit of a change, but not concerning specific countries. For specific books in specific countries, some ideas are brought in for these countries, like in China or also in Romania. We have some specific terms, but it's not the whole structure of the book that is changed. The whole structure should be applicable in all countries. And also the case with the depression is something that you can find in all countries. So that was the change. While the case that had been in the German book is more a specific German case, I think. So the case should be a more international one.
Arno, maybe we can also quote here one of the favorite like quotations of Nossrat Peseschkian, where he said, you know this from the books, that he always said, this book guides you to the source, to the water, but you have to drink yourself. So this book is offered really as a, I think, as you can say, as a gift, as a intellectual, as a psychotherapeutic gift to the community worldwide. And now you have to read it, study it, and to apply it in your culture. Why not then? Yeah, I mean, you have to apply this and so on. So that's also will be very interesting in the next few months and years, how you apply some of these ideas in your own country. What things do you change or add to that? I think this is open for you. Yeah, this is open to you, and that will be very interesting in future congresses. Yeah. Yeah.
I think interesting for the specific countries was the process of translation, as the specific terms had to be translated in a way that are understood in a humanistic and psychodynamic and systemic way, so that not only the terms had been translated like the German term, but to adapt it to the understanding in the different countries. This is different in different countries. There are some terms that have a different meaning in another country. You cannot use it in the way like it is used in Germany. And this is happening in the process of translation in all the countries until now. And so we discuss these terms then with the translators so that it is adapted to that culture.
Maybe, Arno, one interesting point maybe for our colleagues might be that one other thing which led to the translation was that, you know, we had in the last 2 years about 100 interviews with future trainers.
Yeah.
And we saw that many are very enthusiastic and want to help people and want to teach, but often the psychodynamic understanding was not so good. So that was also one of the reasons to say, okay, can we publish something? Can we translate something so that to increase the psychodynamic understanding? Yeah. So and that is also one of the purposes of the book. So it will help you very much in your work as a trainer, in your work if you have examination with students, but also for yourself and working with your own clients to, and especially really how to combine the humanistic aspect of positive psychotherapy with the psychodynamic aspects. I think that's this book will really help you in that. Will really, and I think, as you said, Arno, you said 200 books, so you can, if you buy this, you can save many other books. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in America, when you buy pizza, they say buy one, get two. Here you also buy one and you get, I don't know, many things are included in that. So,
we have raised hand.
Yeah, Maria Tishenko, please. Maria, пожалуйста. Maria? Hello,
Yeah.
Maria?
Maria Tishenko, yeah?
Задам таке запитання. Скажіть,
I
будь
will
ласка,
ask the following question, please.
ви описали таку метафору.
You've described such a metaphor about psychodynamic approach, about the hand and the heart, and what metaphor would you suggest for the psychotherapy?
І ще дуже ми чекаємо на переклад української книги вашої. Можливо, ви порекомендуєте пару книг, які ви дуже любите, щоб можна було проникнутися духом психотерапії через вас.
Maria, I'm sorry, I am not sure which language you're listening into, but could you repeat, because the sound was not, it was breaking.
Yeah, perhaps you could you understand her and translate it to me again? She asks for the metaphor also for Ukraine, I understood, for the Ukrainian psychotherapy.
And she asked about your recommendation of the book, which you can recommend for further developing of psychodynamic understanding.
Yeah. And she asked for a metaphor for that. Is
Два вопроси.
Yeah. Oh,
Arno, she
yes.
said that there was this metaphor with the heart, brain, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
is there maybe something else one could share with that then, yeah, regarding this approach?
Yeah. I would say the following for that. On one side, you feel with your heart your client. Your mind tries to understand it. For that, you need the theory. And your hands in therapy, that means how you are with your client, gives you the possibility to interact with each other to change something. The word psychodynamic means now that your heart is beating, but you have to measure how fast is it beating, what is it doing? That is what you need your mind for. And your mind needs all the terms that are useful in psychodynamic therapy. You need the term of the personality, of the structure, of the capacities of the person and personality. You need terms for conflict of positive psychotherapy, terms of conflicts also from other approaches to describe the client. And you can have a description of this relation pattern of the client. All that finally to understand why these symptoms, this suffering comes up. So you can say it is similar to the story of Nossrat Peseschkian, when a young man who was in love of a woman who he could not get, was so ill that he didn't get out of his bed anymore. And the healer came and tested his pulse and found out that his pulse is faster when somebody is mentioning the place where this girl lives. And so finally they find that girl that he missed so much. And it's similar to therapy, that first you need to feel something, and what you feel you can translate into terms. With the terms you can understand your client, and then your approach, how you treat, can be influenced.
Okay, thank you very much. Olga Litvinenko, пожалуйста.
Дорогий Арно, я вам дуже
Dear
вдячна.
Arno, I am really thankful to you for your work.
Особисто
Specifically, me personally,
що
I believe that
потрібно
it is
читати.
needed to read.
Я якраз та,
I'm the person who is reading a lot, and there are people who listen to me and a lot of students who are reading a lot as well. And I also believe that reading is forming that clinical and psychodynamical thinking that we need so much in our practice. And I think that we need to read books about positive psychodynamic therapy, and this is forming us as positive psychodynamic therapists. And I always have happiness about the appearance of such books. And I have a question to you. I have not read that book yet, but I really hope that it will happen really soon. Please tell, is your book just theoretical, or there will be some exercises that we will be able to pay attention to from your book? Thank you.
You will find a lot of practical examples in there. And the psychodynamic aspect and the humanistic aspect of the examples is that whatever this case example, for instance, caused in the therapist is described. So it's not only the case that is described, but it is also described what this case and this person caused in the therapist, so that we understand how do you feel with the client and what do you do with your feelings, what do you do with what you experience as a therapist. This is mainly here as a practical aspect, and of course also very practical aspects of how to differentiate between a conflict treatment and a structural treatment, for instance. That's a crucial decision for therapy. And for that, you need practical guidelines. Is it a conflict that you are working with, or is it a structural capacity you are working with? Is it a relation pattern you are working with? And then you can find out in the examples of the book how to work with that. So this is included. Also is included another chapter, or are chapters and parts of trauma therapy, because we have clients with conflicts, we have clients with personality problems, and we have trauma clients, sometimes mixed. And you have to distinguish what to do, how to be as a therapist. And for that, you have several practical examples too. So
Maybe,
it's a textbook for understanding and some examples for treatment. It's not like instruments for treatment. It's not like here we will have a relaxation technique. That's not that, but it's more how I can understand myself as a therapist and how can I be with my client and which therapeutic approach is needed. That's what is in the book.
Maybe, Arno, if you allow, we can also add that this book is also a guide for psychotherapists. For example, which patients we treat and which patients we should not treat.
Yeah.
Because very often, you know, someone says, you have to go to a psychotherapist. And the poor psychotherapist then is often under pressure whom to treat or not, and so on and so on. But this book helps you also to really to diagnose, identify who are clients for psychotherapy and maybe who are clients for counseling, who are clients maybe to go to the hospital, but whom can I treat and whom can I not treat? So that's also very important, and it's also like so therefore it's like a practical guide, Arno, I think we can say. It's a practical guide which will help you to see what is the path of a psychotherapist, what is maybe more counseling or something else, because sometimes this is mixed up.
The book starts after the introduction with a case example, and this case example is immediately described. the spontaneous information of the client first. So we have a picture of that person that comes to therapy, of that guest who comes to us. Then the life history and the development of this client is described, and what it causes also in the therapist when the guest talks about that. Then the first impression. What is my first impression as a therapist of that client? And then the psychological findings. So I distance a bit and look at the client and see, which psychological findings do I have? And then the symptoms and symptomatic diagnosis and psychodynamic diagnosis of conflict, structure, relation, development, and symptom function. And then the considerations for treatment plans and the goal settings for therapy and how to treat this client. All this is on, I think, 4 pages as a summary. So to see, I can describe for my colleagues such a client with everything that we experience with each other on 4 pages and have a therapy plan. That's how it starts. Then later, after that practical part, the theory comes to find out what does this mean and so on. Later come practical parts again for the practical therapy, for practical diagnosis and practical therapy so far.
Thank you very much. So friends, any other questions?
Yeah, sure.
This is from Mr. Ocean. We have a question.
Yeah.
Maybe I can read it slowly.
Yeah.
Professor Arno's book is a very professional book on psychodynamic therapy. It is a book that guides a psychotherapist on how to develop his visitors. Yeah. In my mind, Professor Arno's book is as classic as OPD2. When the book OPD2 was translated into Chinese, a training system corresponding to that was distributed at the same time. Now there will be special OPD system training in China. I would like to ask Professor Arno whether you or WAP will establish a training system related to positive psychodynamic therapy at the same time as the international edition of this book. Through this system, the readers of these books are instructed how to use the methods mentioning in the book to help their clients. Will this be possible in future? So if I understand correctly, the question of Mr. Ocean is, will there be parallel training programs to the book? Arno, maybe briefly and then.
Yeah. So since last year, the Ocean, we do that together, have this first seminar about positive psychodynamic therapy at a time while the book is translated. And this will be somehow like a pioneer group for future training groups, if you like. And with pleasure, we can go on then. Until now, these experienced colleagues in this group reflect their cases also with the help of material I give you. And in this way, we could go on, if you like, if WAP wants with such a training also in future. So it means a deepening psychodynamic training. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, Monsieur Jean-Marie, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much. I have a question. Are the mentalities in Europe so different? And maybe will the book now from Arno will be at an opening also for the other countries who are not access to positive psychotherapy, as France, as Belgium, as the Netherlands? Are those people thinking different? Or why is the reason?
I think the reason for this difference is individualism and collectivism. The countries where positive psychotherapy grew most had been countries in which the family is as important or even more important than the individual. The psychoanalytic countries, you can say, like France, Germany, United States, had been concentrated mainly on individual treatment and treatment of the individual. Besides that, a systematic family therapy exists, but it is distinguished either systematic family or individual therapy. But when I go to Turkey, or I remember Cyprus, to work in Cyprus, it is impossible just to think of one client that comes, the disorder, the problems, the conflicts this one client has have always influence on the social system and the family. And therefore, positive psychotherapy of Peseschkian was very, very useful for these countries. Therefore, in these countries, they had been developed so very strongly. When you see Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, Cyprus, also Bulgaria and Romania have more influence of the family in therapy and influence of therapy in the family, and we have to involve more the family as such. I think there is the big difference. In Belgium or France, they have another tradition of more psychoanalytic therapy, for instance, and Nossrat Peseschkian had not been there so often, and we had not been there so often. We had been invited to the more collectivistic countries first, and I think this is the reason why there is such a difference. Now, in the last time in England, for instance, the Netherlands are more of our colleagues, but it is slowly going on in these countries with positive psychotherapy.
Thank you. Maybe a translation would help, and translation in French, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
To Udo has in mind, Udo has in mind to translate it into French because he is also a very good French speaker and would like to do that. I think he will do that in future. Yeah.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Olena Kuzmenko, пожалуйста.
У мене таке запитання.
I have the following question. I also haven't read the book, but I wanted to ask whether this book is more recommended to the psychotherapists or to the consultants. Can we also recommend it to the consultants?
Very good question.
I would say for the consultants, you can read it in a bit different way sometimes. To understand the theory is also very helpful in consultation. It is just that in consultation, you can take the informations in another way to apply them compared to therapy. In therapy, we have to see the difference between consultation and therapy. In therapy, this interaction between the two will bring up the subjects, the conflicts, the capacities that are involved in that disorder or stories or symptoms of the client. So we use the therapeutic interaction, the therapeutic relation, especially in psychodynamic treatment. While in consultation, we try to bring up the capacities of the clients to develop, and the client is doing that. The book might help the consultants to understand the situation of the client better and to give a feedback to them in their understanding. So it will help the consultants, of course, in the same way. Still, it will be applied in a little bit different way.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, Mrs. Ola, please.
Okay. My question is about writing the book, because I did not read it yet, ashamed to say, but for sure will. But when you described what is in the chapter, I had this feeling that you're going through 5 steps. Is it so in your mind that in a way you described it, you constructed it using 5 steps of psychotherapy, or is it my impression only?
Oh, dear Ola, I'm a very simple man. I have a need of looking at my 5 fingers all the time in life. When I'm talking of the hands, these are the 5 fingers. I will always start with my thumb, with what I feel, not what I understand, but what I feel is the first. And then I will ask the questions, and that's the second finger. What is that about, what we feel? What is that about my guest speaks about? And then the longest finger will come up to see, hey, where are the capacities, the resources, the strong sides of this client? How could this client cope with the situation in that difficulty? And then the fourth finger comes with a ring. It's about decisions. It's about responsibility. It's about a task. And then to find out in therapy, what can you change? What is your responsibility in therapy of both? And after that is done, the little finger that is so sensitive will look to the future and will see, what can this guest who came to me, this client who came, do after therapy with all that? So, of course, I cannot avoid that I live with these 5 fingers, and I cannot avoid that I link them, of course, with the 5 steps of the human communication. It is something that Peseschkian found out, that this is like a specific structure of a human communication in therapy, but also in life. Moreno has also 5 steps in psychodrama. Bategai has 5 steps in group therapy. Others have 5 steps of communication. So I cannot avoid these 5 fingers. Also in the book, of course, in each page you will find something about it, but it's not described with the 5 fingers, I think. Yeah.
Arno, but maybe can we say that if someone starts with the basic course, with the basic training, he should start with the books of positive psychotherapy.
Of positive psychotherapy first.
And then when you get to the master course, to become a psychotherapist, then this book, or now the international edition, becomes very important. So it enriches your understanding of positive psychotherapy. But for the beginners, you would start with the books of positive psychotherapy. But then in order to deepen this, you can either read this book or you buy 200 others, if you heard. It is your decision then, There was now a question about, in the chat, about these books. The books will be available in hard, Katja, correct me if I'm wrong. They will be in hardcover, often through Amazon, so that you can order them. There will be an ebook version on the website of Positive Psychotherapy, positum.org will be the electronic version. And
that's it.
And sometimes the soft cover or not?
Only for English one.
Okay, which we don't. Okay, so either the hardcover, you get this, and then it can you can work with this and put it inside, and nothing happened to the book, or you get this, or you get the electronic version, and you can get this then.
And this is for all languages we announced before, including Russian and Ukrainian. So both for them, electronic and hardcover.
Okay, Katja, can we say something about the time frame? So now
we're expecting to publish Turkish version this October, and hopefully to publish Russian and Ukrainian till the end of the year. This is our time frame.
Okay, and Arno, the other translations, when do you think?
We are just talking with the publishers there, and I hope this will be possible this year to bring them out. In China, Ocean needs to know, I don't know, but I think this will also be going on. It is sometimes a long process of discussing the contents to have a good translation. So this needs some time. And lecturing also, what we are doing with the books just now.
maybe Arno, if you allow me a personal comment, dear friends, you see this positive psychotherapy, and we are all fans of it, and really is very rich. I think we all see that. It's a very rich method, and it's really an international method. You can apply it to many, many cultures. We have done this now, I think, in 40, 50 cultures. So, so the idea is that this is our main method, but we need, of course, input from other methods and techniques. This is very important. So this new book helps us to understand the psychodynamic aspect of that better. This is because some of the original books from psychoanalysis and so they are quite complicated to understand, yeah, at least for me, yeah. So this makes it just easier to understand. Then you need techniques from other methods you can add. So this means like positive psychotherapy becomes your main how to say tool or so, and then you can add different things to that then depending on in which field you are working. And with this, I think we get always better and better. Arno, you want to show something or no? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please.
I think
then,
it is about professional psychotherapy. Psychotherapy became a profession in Germany, for instance. It became a profession in some other countries already. And as a professionalist, you have to have the background to treat many different kinds of disorders, for instance. You will work with medical specialists like psychiatrists and psychosomatic treatment. And so professional psychotherapeutic treatment needs also the knowledge about many different ways of explaining the disorders and treatment. And in this way, for instance, as an example, OPD was published. It's this operationalized psychodynamic diagnostic system. It was published also in other cultures. The problem was it was not very much used. And the same in Germany. It was too complicated to understand it in that book, even in the trainings. It was too complicated to apply it to the practice. So in 2008, Udo and me had been sitting together and said, it's such a good thing with OPD, with the operationalized psychodynamic diagnostic, but nobody understands it. Couldn't we do it in a simple way? And we had a little book and published it. And after that, people understood OPD and then could read the books of OPD and ordered, after ordering our book, they ordered on Amazon also OPD after having read our book, and then they understood, ah, so that is it. And that's the same, I think, in Russia or in China or in Romania, that this book, OPD, is a wonderful scientific book. To understand it, you need some introduction. You need a professional understanding of how and why to apply it. And after having had this little book, we brought it into our big book again. So it's all included here. So even the complicated OPD is then understandable with the help of such an introduction. To be a professional, finally, also in psychodynamic therapy, like a surgeon who is specialized in a special field.
Thank you very much, Arno. So Dorothy, you want to say something? Ola, you're finished, yeah? So you go out with the hand. So Dorothy, please.
Can you hear me now?
Wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Hello,
I
Dorothy.
just would like a clarification. Are you people writing, you and Udo Boessmann, writing an English book, or is it already available, or what is the situation there?
I have translated that book already for translation into Chinese, because in China it's easier to translate it from English. So this is an adapted version for translation. It's not adapted for the American or British population. It's more adapted to the easy translation to other languages until now. So such a version is existing. It's as a working version insofar. And I have
Would
to
this be what you
work it out with Udo. It's not yet published. No. It's not
Look,
published, of course.
You see, Dorothy, we had a very pragmatic approach. We thought, okay, this book would be important for our 2,000 members, first of all.
Yes.
And then we analyzed from which countries are they coming from.
Of course.
Yeah? And so that's actually the result. So we cannot translate it now in all 42 languages of our members, but we decided for the 10 most populated PPT countries. And English, as you heard, because positive psychotherapy developed more from Germany eastwards, yeah. So through Asia, now North Africa and Eastern Europe. So English, as strange as it sounds, was not in the first category of translation, but I'm sure it will come. But first we thought it's important to get this book out as quickly as possible to most of the members. Because,
there's no question. The only thing is you referred to an English edition, which would come.
Yeah. In future, yeah. In future.
Okay.
Yeah, in future. Yeah.
So, dear friends, any other questions?
Yeah, perhaps some comment to the English version. There is a need of an English version for Britain. Great Britain has another language than India and another language than the United States. So we have to be careful. English is not English for everybody in the world. It needs to be adapted to the culture, because when we talk about humanistic psychodynamic therapy, it needs to be implemented into that way of feeling and language of these countries. And that's totally different, I would say, in India, where you have the family as the most important, and Great Britain, where there's another kind of humor, another kind of individualism, for instance. So even English versions would have to adapt it to our colleagues in these countries. So it's not just one version for all the world in English, but it needs to be adapted to the cultures it is made for, the book is made for.
But friends, I have a good news and another news for you. The good news you heard, that this book is now going to be published in many languages. The other news is, if next year someone in an examination, in an interview, in a seminar says, I have never heard this, and then you will ask him, did you not read this book? Then you have a problem, yeah? So, because, no, really, this is something we all have to sit down, all of us, yeah? Me too, and all of us, really to study, so to understand the psychodynamic background of positive psychotherapy. And then you will see you become more confident in your work as a psychotherapist, or as a counselor. You see what is counseling and what is psychotherapy and what am I going to do? Because sometimes there is a mixture, patient, clients, counseling, therapy. So we must be a little bit clear, you know, and it will help you really in your identity as a positive psychotherapist, I think very, very much. It's a little bit, you can say, like a GPS. It helps you really for your orientation. You see, in Germany, if you want the insurance company to pay psychotherapy, you have 5 sessions time. You have 5 sessions with the client. Then you have to write a report of 2 or 3 pages. It goes to the insurance company and they read it very carefully. And then they say yes or no. If they say no, it's always very sad, but it happened. But so you are forced. The insurance company will not pay if you don't write these 2 or 3 pages. So if you are experienced, you need 2 hours. The students need usually 2 days for that. Some even need 2 weeks for that. They sit down, read all these books and don't know what to do, but it helps you it helps you to focus on one question. Why does this person need psychotherapy? Why is he ill? What is the issue? Because very often we do it emotionally. Oh, he needs psychotherapy. Yeah, but why? Yeah, what am I treating? Again, if you think of medicine, you know, you need a diagnosis. What has this client? Does he need a drug? Does he need an operation? Does he need vegetable, vitamins, whatever? So this will really help you very much to focus more, to have a treatment plan. What am I doing with this client? And sometimes during the process, we ourselves go back to our treatment plan, maybe which you wrote 6 months ago. You sometimes read this again, and then you see, aha, so maybe I lost my the track. I lost the main path because with the client I got involved in daily things. So we are discussing for 6 months the actual conflict, but we never got to the basic or inner conflict. So this book also helps you really like a GPS, maybe we can say like a GPS a little bit, huh? So for your orientation, where do you go? What do you want to achieve? And as a self-control, what did I achieve actually then, yeah? What was the original treatment plan? What is the outcome? And I think we can say that sooner or later in all countries, there will be surely some kind of insurance for mental problems. I mean, because they are increasing worldwide, so the governments are forced to do this sooner or later. And then if we are experienced in that, this will also help for positive psychotherapy to be accepted as a treatment which is paid by the insurance. And it's not just we are playing some games or, you know, we have a nice time, but a very clear structure, very scientifically based, but also very practicable in different cultures. Sorry for that. Yeah, okay. So, dear friends, yeah, please, Arno.
If you like, I could just show you an overview about the contents of the book, if you like.
Do you have it in English?
Do you see it?
Yes, yes,
Yeah?
yes. Yeah.
So I will show you some of the contents. First, this is this version that is in English for the translation in Chinese. It starts with that case example and the description of one case and diagnostic and the plan for treatment, like Hamid explained it, these 3 pages. And then it's a chapter about what means psychotherapy and illness, what means healing profession. As psychotherapists, we are in a healing profession, like a medical doctor. And then comes the classical background, the classic authors. So the authors of psychodynamic therapy, starting with object relations theory with Melanie Klein, Winnicott, Kernberg, Kohut, and others, to explain them in a short way. So when you read that, you understand, what is the difference between Kohut and Kernberg? What means the self? What is the self-object? And so on. And after that, the humanistic approach is described with different methods, also Frankl and Reich, Byrne, Moreno, and others. That's the next part. So you have the psychodynamic and the humanistic authors of the past that influence this method today. Then comes positive psychotherapy, according to Peseschkian, in its importance for positive psychodynamic therapy, and then come the intersubjective, interpersonal, relational concepts. That means step by step, you will understand all the background of psychodynamic understanding and therapy, and then structural analysis, other authors from psychoanalytic background, and also from behavior therapy background. Because it's interesting and important to see how can a therapist coming from behavior therapy understand psychodynamic therapy? Then comes integrative approaches and transcultural psychotherapy, culturally sensitive psychotherapy. This is the introduction of theory, and then all these terms used in psychodynamic therapy are explained. So the basic psychodynamic concepts are explained, the unconscious drives, development phases, object representations, self-representations, and so on. Then some Freud theory and defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms now explained in a way that you can understand them also in a modern way. All the defense mechanisms, each has a chapter. And then we come to the term that you know, conflict and conflict dynamic, basic conflict. But basic conflict exists in many different authors. So we distinguish, there are different kinds of basic conflicts, and you will learn about that. What is an internal conflict? And what is the current unconscious inner conflict? And then many different terms are explained that are used in psychodynamic therapy, like neurosis, trauma, scenic understanding, and so on. And then psychotherapy research in relation with psychodynamic therapy. And then in the next chapter, practical psychodynamic diagnostics, a full chapter, and then psychodynamic treatment techniques as the next chapter. And after that, special forms of psychodynamic therapy in brief or focal therapy, for instance, trauma therapy, also in addicted patients. And finally, then, after 50 years of experience with health insurance-funded psychotherapy in Germany, and this is what Ola also asked and others asked, the experiences from Germany here in the last chapter will be offered so that also the other countries have an insight into what means psychotherapy in that German system, what means mental illness and treatment by psychotherapy. As we use psychotherapy also in mental health, in the psychiatric hospital, for instance, in psychosomatic clinics in Germany, as well as in outpatient clinic institutions. So that's the overview about that book. And of course, there is a long list of literature in the past.
Thank you very much. I think this is very helpful then, and so on then.
So far.
Very wonderful. So friends, are there any other questions you want to share? So it's good that we have answered all your questions. Yeah, this is very good. So please, also,
Ola?
Again, Ola?
So, and Dorothy?
No, Dorothy is still there, but it's no,
yeah.
I think.
And Ola? Yeah.
Ola, you have a new question? No, Ola, we don't understand you. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, when do you sleep? That's the question.
Sorry?
Sleep. Never mind. Okay.
Okay, so we don't understand you at that moment. Okay, Arno, do you want to say something at the end, or?
Yes, I think I come back to Moreno, who described the existence of a human being as living on a stage. This stage we are living on which our life plays, is like the personality, like the structure we bring in. Like we had been brought into this world, we had been brought into a special theater where we are in now. And within this theater, we can play only what is possible in this theater. That's our personality. What we play is what in psychodynamic therapy is named conflict and relation. When actors come on the stage, play with each other, like therapists and clients. And on that stage, we will have a title of that piece on the stage. And this is the reason for the clients to come to us. And psychodynamic therapy and positive psychotherapy together try to understand, hey, what is this play good for the client, for his social environment? What is important for this client? Which are the capacities of this client? And what can this client play tomorrow after having played this now in our therapy today? So in the theater, the stage is like the personality and the structure of the client that the client brought in. The piece that is, the play that is played is like these capacities and conflicts and relation patterns that are played, and the symptoms play a role on this stage to give a way to that client, to show a way also for the future. The symptom has a function to guide that client, and the client needs to understand, why do I have this symptom? Why do I get especially this symptom, like a depression or this heart disorder or whatever? And it will be a way that is guided on that stage by the therapist. So to find a new stage, to find a new way in the life of the client. It's about development of the clients and of the therapists, by the way.
So Arno, then I think also on behalf of our colleagues and participants, really thank you very much for sharing your insights and your experience and really why this book has been written and what is the story. So I think we are all very excited to read it, and as soon as it will be published. So I think that's really it's a next stage also in the development of our work, and so we really steadily develop so that we become more professional. And the purpose is, of course, not only for ourselves to have more knowledge, but to help our clients and our patients. And we are living now in very strange times. Very strange times that and people really need guidance for mental health. They need guidance how to live. And so I think if positive psychotherapy would not have been developed 50 years ago, it would have to be developed today. Because really this is something you all feel that we can really apply this in our work. And so I wish you all the best for the work which you're doing in all the parts of the world, all the parts of the world. And I think it's wonderful to be in this one professional family, that we help each other. And just to know there are these other colleagues in different countries doing the same thing, trying to survive, trying to do something good. I think this is a wonderful thing. And really, Arno, once again, really thank you also for, and you and Udo, for writing this book and sharing it with all of us. And so, dear friends, then we will see you, God willing, in 6 weeks, in 6 weeks at the online World Conference of Positive Psychotherapy, and the trainers at the International Trainer Seminar then, Okay. So really, thank you very much. If you have questions, you can write to the head office, and then we can share this with Arno. So really, Arno, thank you very much. And all the others also, thank you very much. Take care. And we will continue with our important work.
Thank you.